Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by Mark, aka the FPL General, to look ahead to Game Week 21. We'll also look at his Game Week 20 score so far and take this longer period before the next deadline to take stock of the best and worst attacks and defences so far this season. Welcome Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Happy New Year to yourself and to viewers and listeners. It's nice to get through the mad rush of fixtures. I feel like I can catch my breath, take stock, and like you said, a good time to do so with a bit more time than usual between deadlines to make sense of what's happened over the busy Christmas period and hopefully get a few green arrows afterwards.
Indeed. Before we look at how you've gone so far, because we're recording this on Monday and there's one more match to go when Nottingham Forest play Wolves, and we both have Chris Wood in our team. So fingers crossed there. But by the time you see this, you might find out that we're disappointed. Just a reminder: do press that like button; does help us out. Do leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to this. If you listen to your podcasts, also remember to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos and podcasts. Okay, let's have a look and see how you've got on so far. Green Arrow up to 33k, small Green Arrow. I'm on a Green Arrow as well, up to 227k, a bit behind, but a Green Arrow so far. You're on 65 points, so yeah, tell us about your game week so far.
Yeah, good game week, and it was needed because I was on 4 red arrows on the bounce, albeit the 4 red arrows only dropped me from 19k to 44k altogether. So it was small red arrows, which was absolutely fine. Didn't get too concerned about those. This game week, I was out and about on Saturday, and I was scrolling through the scores at full time, and I wasn't overly pleased with how things were going. But then I got to the last scoreline, and it was Southampton 0. Brentford 5. Last time I checked, it was 3, and I was happy that Bumo had something. But then he made the game week 19 pointer, absolute hero. He's been on my team for quite a long time now, and I'm glad he's there, obviously. So going back to the transfer, I only had one free transfer. I had the injured Jared Bowen to deal with, and I ended up on Ismail Assar. We spoke about him in the last video. Just cheap, good fixtures. Eze's obviously got a couple of assists recently, but I'm still back in Sar to be good value over the next couple of game weeks. Double Newcastle, Gordon and Isak. That could have been even more points in that Tottenham fixture. I was actually disappointed to only get 14 in total from those two. Nothing from the defenders, double Arsenal, Alisson. I was just happy Alisson outscored Trent by 1 point, which is it's all about the small wins. Castagna conceded 2, Chris Wood to go, and Palmer with 10, and Captain Salah for 14. So yeah, good game week. I think I'm currently 33k, 34k. Chris Wood hopefully can make that a little bit better
Yes.
on Monday night.
Yes, fingers crossed for Chris Wood there is hopefully make my Green Arrow greener. Yeah, the Brian Mbomo move was good. A lot of people moved him on to the likes of, say, Gordon. So they thought they'd done well, and they have done well until really this score. And then also factor in Brian Mbomo's got a 13-point score at recent weeks as well. And it's just one of those examples that there's so much choice, so many good players, so many good consistent players. Gordon was good last season, still good. Isak good last season, still good. Brian Mbomo looked good last season, still good. So on. That it might pay to just keep hold of what you've got and save yourself a transfer and move that elsewhere. And both you and I took that policy with Brian Mbomo. Whereas pretty much in my mini leagues, he's a bit of a differential, which is quite handy. But yeah, the other telling thing I think from this week, apart from the sort of threat of snow, which to scupper the Liverpool game, was just how little we're starting to get to the stage where an increasing amount of players mean nothing to us. Salah, I didn't care whether the game for him personally got cancelled, whether he got a hat-trick, whether he scored nothing. It doesn't matter because he's 199% owned around me. Isak I've got in my team, you've got as well, 90% owned. Pretty much don't care what he does. Palmer, don't care what he does either. So it's up to the rest of the lads to do it. I think we had this situation last year with the template. The pricing has made it different this season. There is more choice, but already we've got 3 players where it's immaterial what they do, and they're unless you captain them. But even with Mo Salah, even if you captain him, it means nothing. So if you don't captain him now, you've got an entire Mo Salah against you.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, it happens every season, and it's always why it gets to this point, and I'm keen on double ups, attacking double
Mm.
ups, maybe more so than I was, first half of the season. That was one of the reasons I went for Gordon to go along with Isak, because I know when Isak does anything, you're just almost, saving yourself from pain
Mm.
rather than gaining anything. Salah's the same, Palmer's the same, so that's why when it comes to Cole Palmer, even though a lot of people are frustrated with Jackson, maybe I'm slightly interested because I'm not getting much out of
Mm.
Palmer even when he does anything. So yeah, it's frustrating when players do become immaterial, but I always think there is always still a few people out there without them. So you do
Yeah,
have to just take even if it's only a tiny, tiny gain,
yeah,
a gain is a gain.
yeah,
And yeah, and it'll change. It will change. We need we
yeah.
need a couple of injuries and a couple of new guys to pop up, and template will change quickly, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could change as soon as game week 21, ever so slightly with Salah, because he has competition for the captaincy. He didn't really have too much realistic competition this week because people had seen how poor Manchester United were and how consistent Salah's been. Indeed, he's still got a haul behind Palmer, but still showing his worth there. But there might be some who are attracted by the slightly better fixtures for some of the other players, Isak in particular. Let's have a look at the fixtures, really, see where we're going with Game Week 21 and beyond, right up to Game Week 26. Similar to last week, but there are some slight changes. Crystal Palace are now top. It was Fulham who were top, but Crystal Palace are now top. So they're starting to cement their place in long-term fixtures, which is why both of us have been investing in Crystal Palace assets. I personally have been happy with Sarr. I think Mateta, Eze, and Sarr are working really well. The goal at the weekend, it was Sarr did excellent work to pass to Eze, who then passed to Mateta, and then Mateta scored. So on another day, that is Eze passing to Mateta, who passes to Sarr, and then Sarr
Yeah, and
ends up getting the goal. Yeah.
Eze was really unselfish too. Could have easily been an Eze goal, Star assist.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yes, it could have been. So I like what I've seen so far from their attack, especially in the second half of that game. But anyway, Crystal Palace at top. Southampton, not many people can go with them on the back of a 5-0 drubbing to Brentford. Fulham are still riding high here. They do have this Newcastle fixture and Nottingham Forest as well in the next 6, so they just will dip down a bit, but still very strong. Manchester United, they've got a really good set of 4 fixtures coming up. Southampton at home, Brighton at home, Fulham away, and Crystal Palace at home. Yeah, I'm starting to feel a bit nervous not having any Manchester United, even though they're quite poor, but they did turn it on against Liverpool. Everton are okay, bit patchy. Same with Brighton, but as we know with Pedro, we've been saying it every week. Play Pedro for the tough fixtures. Don't really care about him for the cheap ones. And what happened? He sat there with 9 points on lots of people's benches. Just play him next time he plays one of these teams. Newcastle, they're dipping a bit, but they've got Wolves and Bournemouth at home. Really good pair of fixtures. Crystal Palace's fixtures are quite good. I appeared on the Foreman's Temporary podcast last week, and I picked 3 differentials for last week. One was for Jamie Vardy, got an assist. And one of the reasons was because he's now got 2 quite good home games coming up as well. Man City, Wolves, Ipswich, West Ham, Bournemouth, meanwhile, have the toughest fixtures. And Nottingham Forest, they've got Liverpool in Game Week 21, but then Southampton at home.
yeah, so I think one of the first things that stands out to me here is towards the bottom, it is Brentford, because next up, Manchester City home, Liverpool at home. And given what Brendan Bumo has just done, as FPL managers do, as soon as someone gets 19 points, they don't think twice, they go and buy him.
Yeah.
But, is it a good entry point this week? I would argue it's not. He is on 13 goals for the season, but it's probably one of those where owners keep and buyers, it's not a definite, definitely don't buy. But when it's Manchester City and Liverpool next, Manchester City have improved a little bit, at least in the last couple of games. It's going to be interesting to see just what the numbers end up being on Brighton Boomo transfers, and I'm sure it's going to be high, but I'm very interested to see how that shakes out, in a week's time when we get to the Tuesday deadline. So that jumps out first of all. I won't be selling him, of course. I'm hoping to keep him all season. He's got a long leash now, given what he's just done. Back to the top of the ticker, Crystal Palace. That's why I went for Sarr last week, and if I make a transfer for Game Week 21, there's a good chance it could be Munoz in defence. It could be Mateta up front. So I'm still interested in adding more I've only got one Palace player, so top of the ticker, I'd like to have more than one asset. Southampton, I'm going to skip over, as most people will. Fulham, I've got Castagna. Raul Jimenez just keeps doing it. I've got 3.2 million in the bank, so I have the option of upgrading Xiaomi whenever I want now, and Raul Jimenez would certainly be in the mix for that, along with the likes of Joe Pedro. Manchester United, then I brought in Bruno for the red cards. I shipped him out for Bowen, who got injured, and now I've got Sarr. And I'm not sure I'm ready to go back to Bruno. He's not forgiven yet. But again, the cash is in the bank. If it's needed, if there's an injury somewhere else in my midfield, a Bruno or an Ahmad, probably more so Ahmad. But yeah, I think I'm well covered. I think with the teams near the top of the ticker at the moment.
Yeah, I think those two Manchester United players you mentioned, being on budget, are the ones to get if you are going to get any. Because they're the ones that are hogging the goals. They're the ones the manager really clearly likes. They're suiting his system. Likes of Garnacho, Rashford, they're just being frozen out really. They're going to get some minutes, or in Rashford's case, maybe no minutes at all again. But yeah, some interesting fixture changes. There's a few like Crystal Palace with this sort of good clear run of long term, but others are like got these nice sort of couple of home games, Chelsea as well, Bournemouth, Wolves. So I'm getting itchy feet with Jackson. You're thinking of getting Jackson in maybe, but I definitely want him for these two. And then if he does nothing for these two, then I know it's time to go. And he's got Man City away, which is not the easiest of games, even with Man City's form. So that's Jackson out time if he doesn't do anything the next two. Because I've been patient so far, a few games, but I have a limit.
Yeah. Just one more thing that really stands out to me there is Newcastle. I think if we change this to the next 4 game weeks only,
it's amazing.
they'd shoot up. Wolves home, Bournemouth home, Southampton away, Fulham home. And when you consider just how good Newcastle have been, I've been so impressed. That midfield trio have been sensational, and that's benefiting the likes of Gordon, Isak, and Murphy up top. And the clean sheets have been there as well. Not in the most recent game week, but that was a more difficult fixture against Tottenham. And every time I watch them, I don't like not owning Lewis Hall. I just think he's fantastic. He's heavily involved. He's taking some corners, just looks good in open play, linking up with Gordon on the left-hand side. So I think when it comes to getting my next defender, it's going to be a close call between Munoz and Hall.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's so much choice there. I mean, as predicted, Houston is on my bench with 8 points. I did say that. I was resigned.
You are the king of bench points this season.
I was resigned to that. Well, I've got 12 bench points. I'm going to escape this game with 12 bench points, which I don't think is too bad. So I've missed out on a few points, but not a huge amount. But yeah, he is really good as well. Although Bournemouth's next two are a bit tough, so I'm going to bench him again. More points probably. Chelsea, Newcastle, then Nottingham Forest at home. Does have Liverpool and Southampton and Wolves. So he's still another handy asset. You've got Robinson at Fulham. I still think is a great asset. I've gone for Henderson, but yeah, obviously any of that Crystal Palace back line. I think Mitchell's not too bad as well. But yeah, Munoz is the one who's getting forward the most. But yeah, a lot of choice. What I've got now is a couple of tables of the attacks so far, the team attacks so far this season. And I've gone for this season rather than the last few because the last few will show, form, but also they can be skewed towards, quite easy fixtures. You can see here. So if I did this in game week 25 and look back, Newcastle, the top attack for the last 4. Well, no wonder with those fixtures. So I wanted to do it for all the matches, and I've sorted by minutes per expected goal involvement or goals conceded in the case of defences as well, because we've still got the Wolves and the Nottingham Forest game, so to make it fair, that is. So here is the table for attacks. So we've got the best attacks sorted per minutes per expected goal involvement, and we got at the top Liverpool, and then right the way down the bottom you got Leicester. Leicester have actually the worst attack in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement, even though they do have 23 goals, which is 8 more than Everton, for example, and so they're and 11 more than Southampton, who have had the worst in goal scoring, but not the absolute pits in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement. So I'll read out a few of the stats. I won't name every team and stuff. So if you're listening to the podcast version, do have a look at the video for this. But the headlines from this are, you've got sort of various groups of attacks. You've got Liverpool Chelsea and Bournemouth are in a sort of tier of their own. They're the best attacks this season. Liverpool got an expected goal every 41 minutes, so there's pretty much 2 a game. Similarly with Chelsea, every 48 minutes. Similarly with Bournemouth, every 48 minutes. So you're looking at expected to score a couple of goals a game. That's good. And then you've got Man City and Tottenham. They're every 53 minutes. Same with Arsenal, Newcastle, every 55 minutes. You've got this sort of other tier. They're sort of almost as good as those top 3, but not quite as good. And this is the season all as it is. Also, you've got Brentford in there every 59 minutes. So they're on a par, really. And you're looking at sort of Brian and Bomo, Wissa, for example. And then you've got this other tier. You've got this sort of almost quite good attacks. You've got Aston Villa, West Ham, Manchester United, Brighton. They're sort of every 60, 67, 69 minutes. Then it goes down a little bit more. Crystal Palace and Fulham, not too bad, every 70 minutes. So they're expected to get a goal involvement every 70 minutes or so. So they might get 2 goals, but they're expected to score at least once. Nottingham Forest every 78 minutes. So then you've got players like Chris Wood defying the XG and, 1 chance, 1 goal. And then you've got the worst teams. Wolves, Southampton, Everton, Ipswich. They cannot get an expected goal every 90 minutes. It's every 94 minutes for Wolves. So they're not expected to score within the 90 minutes. Ipswich every 99 minutes, same with Everton. And the absolute worst is every 100 minutes is Leicester there. But once again, in Jamie Vardy, you've got an XG-defying striker in Jamie Vardy. But anyway, what does this, tell you? I mean, I don't know if any of these were surprises to you. I guess Liverpool wouldn't be, but any other surprises?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that raise the eyebrows in there. Bournemouth, first of all, in 3rd place. I know they've been good this season, but given a bigger sample size now of almost every team playing everyone else halfway through the campaign, it's very impressive to see Bournemouth up there. I always think the problem with them, though, is, and we've said it many times, is the goals are usually spread around. You've got Ivan Nielsen, Utara comes off the bench and gets goals. You've got Semenyo, Kluivert. It's quite hard to pin down a talisman there. It's a lot more spread out as opposed to a Forest, who are a lot lower. I still can't believe Forest have only scored 26 goals and are riding as high in the Premier League as they are. It just shows you how impressive they are defensively.
Yes.
To get up there. But again, Chris Wood's numbers don't matter with him. Like you say, such a seasoned pro at this stage, he doesn't need too many chances. And the beauty of him is when he gets a goal, you're getting 2 or 3 bonus points very often as well. Wolves probably stand out here as well towards the bottom. Numbers are not great, but they have scored 31. And again, it just shows you that Cunha was probably overperforming quite a bit. And those of us who had him were probably fortunate in many ways to get so many points from him. And again, maybe we won't be as quick to go back there when he's back in action. Yeah. Elsewhere, no surprise to see those teams towards the bottom. Even heard Sean Dyche speaking on Match of the Day about struggling to score goals even before his time there. He's talking about manufacturing ways to win games. So it's never too encouraging FPL wise if a manager has no faith in his team in scoring goals. And again, Bournemouth been ahead of Man City, Tottenham, Arsenal, and Newcastle is probably the biggest surprise there. Yeah. Manchester United are a lot lower than I would like them to be. Probably would have predicted Brighton to be higher this season as well. Crystal Palace are well down the list, but fixture-wise, if we took a sample size again, next 6-7 game weeks, I would expect them to be higher.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, Bournemouth have been should have been scoring more. Their expected goals is getting on for 40. But they're in fact goal. They've only scored 30. So I say only 30. That's double Everton. So they're already twice as good as Everton and have been underperforming. There's 9 expected goals floating around the ether somewhere that Bournemouth can be getting. I think the other thing is something I'll probably look at in my video, my team reveal. I'll probably have a look at some talisman as well, because as you were saying about Bournemouth, and the problem there is they've got so many routes to points in players. So it doesn't matter really that they can score loads if you can't pinpoint that exact player. Whereas with Wolves, if they're only mustering a chance every game, and that's only just, but if that chance is Cunha's and he's putting it away, then you've got a great asset there. So it's worthwhile. But yeah, so something I'll look at, and so something can be perhaps looked at tandem with this. But yeah, I was surprised by Bournemouth being so high, I must admit. And I was quite surprised by Leicester being so low. And I do wonder whether Van Nistelrooy's will have his management style will mean that they score more. But I didn't want to. It's too small a sample size to be able to say either way. But it's something to monitor perhaps there. And as a Brighton fan, I wish they'd played Buonanotte more because I think he's Leicester's best player at the moment.
Yeah, Leicester, again, I don't think there's ever going to be enough there for us to really trust Vardy. And I think what goes against Vardy this season is he's been good. He always looks good. He's still got that, brilliant movement. He had a very good chance at the weekend that was just past the post. Our goalkeeper might have saved. Just really good movement as you come to expect. But the issue is it's the other options available at similar prices. Raul Jimenez, João Pedro. It's very, very hard to go for a Leicester striker, an aging Leicester striker over these, younger guys who are playing for teams with better numbers. One more thing that just stands out to me as well, or it makes me think, I like many others ended up on Calvert-Lewin for a while, and I think it's probably a trap I fall into quite often over the seasons is getting a striker from a team wanting to get goals from him in a team that doesn't score many goals. Now, Chris Wood's probably an exception to this rule, but if you have a Calvert-Lewin and you see Everton having 15 goals after, 18, 19 fixtures? I know they missed a game with a postponement, but it's probably worth just doing a little sanity check and maybe checking over the last couple of seasons, under Sean Dyche, how many goals do I expect Everton to score on average? And if it's extremely low, then I shouldn't be really going near Calvert-Lewin, no matter how cheap he is or how good he's looking in a small batch of games. So maybe just a little, lesson to take away there.
Yeah, I mean that's what's put me off. Say Delap at Ipswich as well. Similar. It's just the expected goals is so low. Although he is getting a high percentage of those. But and another note there is Man City are in fourth, so not too shabby. They're not part of that elite of Liverpool, Chelsea, Bournemouth. But that could creep up because they've got better fixtures at the moment. Although they're not perfect and they could have easily have shipped quite a few goals against West Ham. Those that kept Haaland, well done, because you've been through. I mean, as we've said many times, moving Haaland out in game week 10 for Cunha to afford Salah, and then captaining Salah most weeks has been season defining. And if you didn't do that and you kept hold of Haaland, you would have fallen away. But this is payback time. Last couple of fixtures, he's got 3 goals in 2 games. If they are to gel, and he's so low owned, I don't think he even figured on live FPL when they have your risks. He wasn't even on the. I mean, I've never seen that. He just wasn't even on there. I don't know what. So around me in the rank, I think he's got 30% ownership overall, but a lot of those will be dead teams. Around me, it was under 5%. I've never seen that before.
It's lovely. I say it's lovely. It's nice. It's nice when and I never thought we'd be in this situation when you don't own Haaland and a goal notification pops up on your phone and he gets a brace and you're not bothered because it's not hurting much, which is. No. It's a bizarre season we're having here. No.
And anyone who's got him now has probably had him for that period. So, in a way, the sort of charitable person in me just goes, look, you've been through this. This is like, you deserve these goals now because you've lost out so badly. But he's not for me. I prefer to spread the cash around at the moment. Even though like Sir Jackson might not be performing as well, could go a bit cheaper, but 14.8. And then looking at those fixtures we've just looked at, Brentford, Ipswich away, great. Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, Newcastle, Liverpool. That doesn't strike me as Haaland time. Let's see how he does in those. But well done those that have kept him.
Yeah, just on Haaland as well. I remember getting rid of him in game week 10, and I was saying it for a few weeks. Game week 18, that's when I'm going to get him back. And then I think we both kind of made our bed with spreading our cash around and deciding not to go back there. But I'm watching a couple of teams closely that went without Haaland when we did. They sold him, but they stuck to the plan of getting him back in game week 18.
Okay.
And obviously they've got 3 goals in 2 games now. So long term, maybe the managers who got off Haaland but got on him now and are timing it well they could be the biggest winners of all.
Yeah,
So, well done in particular if you got off him and now you've just got back on him,
yeah.
as long as the rest of your team is also performing as well, of
That's
course.
true. If you've got Haaland and expensive Isak, then you just wasted 5 grand, 5 million rather, because I mean I looked at I didn't have Isak. Isak was my main threat, not just for the ownership, just because he's scoring every match. So yeah, but yeah, lots of choice, lots of different ways to play the game, and you will see Haaland teams shooting up the rankings, and well done to them. Let's have a look at some defences as well. So this might help our sort of future captaincy decisions as well. Few surprises, few aren't surprising. So I'll just read out a few of them. We'll come to you for your opinion, Mark, in a sec. So I've sorted this by minutes per expected goals conceded. I've done this to be by sorted by minutes, as I said, because we've still got a Wolves and Nottingham Forest game to play. But Arsenal at top of that, they're every 107 minutes, so they're pretty much not conceding an expected goal during that sort of 90 minutes. They've got to go to extra time for that. They've only conceded 18. And their expected goals because he's only 18, so they're neither over or underperforming. They've got a whopping 7 clean sheets. Liverpool are next every 102 minutes. Very strong. They're not conceding an XG until they get to the 102nd minute. And they've got 8 clean sheets. Nottingham Forest as well. We know about them at the moment. They're not scoring a lot, although Chris Wood is doing well. But every 92 minutes. So once again, it's not really, it's roughly around one a match, if that. They've conceded 19 goals, 8 clean sheets as well. Newcastle pretty strong as well, every 82 minutes. So they're not in this top tier. So you've got this elite tier of Arsenal, Liverpool, Nottingham Forest in terms of defences. And then you've got these sort of also rounds. Newcastle, 7 clean sheets. Aston Villa have been, they've conceded. They're expected to have conceded 25. They've in fact conceded 32 and only 2 clean sheets. So they're broadly similar to Newcastle, but they've been very much underperforming. Bournemouth as well, strong defence. Fulham every 76 minutes. So you've got that batch there. And then you've got this other batch, Everton, Chelsea, Manchester City, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Manchester United, and Wolves. They're in a sort of 70, sort of under 70 minutes, sort of 67 minutes to 60 minutes. Then you've got Brentford, Tottenham, and West Ham, not strong defences. They're sort of every 59 minutes or so. And then you've got this other this is the key one for the captaincy, the teams you want to target. Your attackers against. Leicester, they're conceding an XG every 48 minutes. Ipswich every 46 minutes, so that's 2 a match. Southampton every 41 minutes, 2 a match as well. Just 1 clean sheet for Leicester, 2 for Ipswich, and 2 for Southampton. So a few surprises there, but the table, I guess, in terms of who's winning and who's losing, tell the story. But yeah, interesting. I think just shows how good Nottingham Forest are. And how underperforming Aston Villa are.
Yeah. Again, I'll start at the top. Arsenal, no surprise. I've got double Arsenal defence. Liverpool second. I've got Alisson. And all of them got me absolutely nothing at the weekend, which is often the case as well, particularly with Liverpool. But Forest, those numbers are just so impressive. 92.2 minutes per expected goal conceded. Nuno's very much, a defence first manager. Only 26 goals scored. So, Chris Wood's obviously a fantastic forward option. But I think it's their defence. I feel like I'm missing out a bit by not having one, even though even though I've got Arsenal and Liverpool assets.
It's the main threat to our rank tonight.
Yeah. I would like, I've got Castagna Mikalenko, for one of those, I'd rather an Aina or a Milenkovic, for example, and I'd be happier with my setup. So maybe I'll end up getting there. I spoke earlier about Munoz is on my radar, as is Lewis Hall, but I'm still guilty of overlooking Nottingham Forest. They're staring at me right in the face with these numbers. 8 clean sheets. Nearly all of them have attacking potential as well at the back, particularly Aina and Milenkovic, and Nico Williams as well, who's been getting a lot of minutes. So I really need to remember that and not overlook Forest any longer. Newcastle, I wouldn't have guessed they would be in 4th, and it's probably a lot to do with the last 4 or 5 game weeks, where they've been performing well and a bit more defensively solid. Good that they've got Botman back as well. That can only be good news. Although Solanke did welcome him back by outmuscling him for that goal. Villa, again, probably been a bit unlucky when you look at the expected goals and actual goals conceded, but they really haven't turned up for us defensively. A lot of us had Konsa early doors. 2 clean sheets is a big surprise there, given how good they were last year. And then again, towards the bottom, Tottenham, we come to expect them to be down there for defensive numbers, especially with so many injuries at the moment. Brentford, as good as Mbumo is, you do not want their defenders. Flecken got a clean sheet this game week, but again, I was quite happy to let him go a few weeks ago. Not that Alisson's got me much in the meantime. It's probably been the same as what Flecken's got in total. But yeah, Brentford's not good defensively. And then again, like the attacking numbers, Brighton, Manchester United, Palace are all kind of middle of the road. So I'm looking there at Palace and I'm looking at Newcastle in fourth. And again, I'm thinking maybe Hall is the better option than Munoz, if I'm just bread and butter clean sheets. But then Munoz offers so much going forward.
I mean, it's worth noting with Crystal Palace as well. I mean, they do have this strong fixture run now, which would indicate they haven't. They've had a disproportionate amount of tougher games. So I would expect to see Crystal Palace move up. Chelsea could dip down even further. They're sort of reversing to the mean. So their expected goals conceded, they should have conceded 30 goals. Well, 29.1 goals. And their goals conceded is actually 24. So there's 5 goals there. So they've been overperforming. So perhaps they're going to start to slip down a little bit, which would be quite interesting. But yeah, so it does indicate the second half of the season, the changes we might see. Because if we assume that a lot of the stats revert to their expected stats, Aston Villa defence could get better. Chelsea's could get worse. But pretty much most of the others are pretty much doing what they should be doing in terms of expected stats, except for
Wolves.
Yeah, Wolves are quite interesting. So they've conceded 42, but their expected goals conceded is 31, which is the same, pretty much the same as Brighton or Manchester United or Brentford. So it's still poor, but 42 is a lot. So you would hope that will be reverting to the mean. So I think we've already seen some attacking returns from Aït-Nouri. I don't rule out going back to Wolves' defence.
Aït-Nouri's sitting on minority step along with Bruno Fernandes. It's going to take a lot for me to go back to those guys. But yeah, again, the numbers are not as bad maybe as they suggest here. And Aït-Nouri, we know how attacking he is, and maybe I'll forgive him at some point.
Yeah, but yeah, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Manchester United, Man City as well, pretty much bang on for what they're expected. They're neither under or overperforming. They're just sort of mid-table-ish in terms of their defence. But yeah, quite interesting, and it perhaps should mean for our captaincy, we should be looking to target Ipswich and Leicester and Southampton, and indeed, they're the teams against them are the ones that are hauling at the moment, rather against teams against Nottingham Forest, which takes us timely on to next week. I have Salah captained against Nottingham Forest prior to me doing this table, and now I'm worried. Anyway, here's your team for next week. Do you want to run us through your team, but also who you're planning to captain, and do those defensive stats concern you, whether it be Salah or perhaps your intended choice?
Yeah, so no transfers made. I've got 1 free transfer available and 3.2 in the bank. Current team, Alisson, double Arsenal defence against Tottenham. Mikalenko's in the starting 11 at the moment at home to Aston Villa. Salah with a vice-captaincy armband against Forest. Gordon, Isak double up against Wolves. Sarr has Leicester away. Bumo home to Man City. That's another brace coming up. Chris Wood at home to Liverpool, which is not great, especially when I've got Alisson in goal. And I've got the captain's armband on Cole Palmer at home to Bournemouth. So that was my just initial, when the FPL website goes down for half an hour on a Saturday morning, I always jump in about noon when it's back up, and I just, without giving it any more than 10 seconds thought, change my captain and pick my bench order. So I've got Castagna, Greaves, and Chiwomi on the bench. So my bench has been notoriously weak and terrible for a long time, but now the busy period's over. Greaves is getting minutes again. Maybe Chiwomi will survive until game week 38. Who knows? So
with my bench points, I envy your Chiwomi.
You said you got 12 points in your bench this week. I'd say I haven't got 12 in total all season.
I consider that a low for me. Anyway, I interrupted you.
So captaincy, obviously, we've got more than a week until the deadline, cup games, etc., etc. But just keeping it simple, we looked at the table of numbers there. Nottingham Forest are just a really good defensive team. I don't expect Liverpool to steamroll them as they have done to other teams. So to me, it feels like a week where you can go against Salah, and I like Cole Palmer at home to Bournemouth. I'm a sucker for home fixtures, and I think I like Palmer more at home to Bournemouth than I do Salah away to Forest. But I've also got Isak at home to Wolves, which I really like as well. So it's probably going to be a three-way shootout for the armband. At the moment, I'd probably say Palmer one. Still probably have Salah number two and then Isak number three, but that
Yeah,
order could change by the
yeah.
time we speak again. And then transfer wise, it could be nothing. It could be a roll. It could be a Munoz or a Lewis Hall, or yeah, probably wouldn't be a Forest defender this week against Liverpool. It could also be a Chiwome upgrade with the 3 million in the bank. But I'm also have a loose plan of assistant manager chip on slot in Liverpool's double game week. So for that reason, I might not get Trent and I might keep some money aside for slot. So I've got 3.2 million. I might only spend, up to maybe 1.5 over the next few weeks, and just because the team's fine, I don't feel like I need to make any major changes, and I could end up just rolling the transfer. But yeah, I'm not in a mad rush to get Trent, for example. If I get an eighth attacker, it's probably about a month ago that I should have done that, and there's probably not as much need to do so now. But again, Joe Pedro I like as an eighth attacker, or Raul Jimenez and things like that. So there's plenty to think about. But it could just be nothing maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a free hit this week, so I could have any player, and I in turn could captain any player, I like these defensive stats of targeting Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton. Now Manchester United play Southampton. I do think Bruno Fernandes is a good captaincy shout this week. For the Maverick, Amad Diallo, but I do think Fernandes, I think, is going to get returns. The stats say he'll get a return, and the stats say that they are one of the worst for giving up chances there. Looking at them all matches as well, I think is a good indicator, because they obviously Southampton lost 5-0 last time out. So there was talk of their defence tightening up a bit before that. So I think that can dispel that. But yeah, and I do think Wolves. But as I said, Wolves have been a tighter defence, not a great defence, but a tighter defence than the amount of goals they've conceded. I do think Isak at home against Wolves is. I'd be very surprised if there's not at least one return there. So I think for me, in my team, he's currently on Salah. It's just a default on Salah at the moment. If I go against him and he scores, that's an entire Salah against me. And I don't particularly want to dip down the rankings any further. So for me, I just need to sort of consolidate and hope my differentials improve. But I think for your team, I actually prefer Isak to Palmer, because Bournemouth's defence, their minutes per expected goals conceded is every 77 minutes, and they are on par for their expected stats as well. So I think they're just a better, stronger team and defensively, and I think Isak against Wolves is what I would do with your team, and I may end up doing it myself if I want to go against the juggernaut of Salah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting week ahead for captaincy. We haven't had one for a while. Everyone was on Salah against Manchester United, or 99% of people. So it's going to be good to see a bit of a split. And I think it probably will be those three. And of course, Haaland owners who have him as well. I can't even remember who they're playing, but I'm sure they'll be looking at him as a captaincy option as well. They
Yeah,
play Brentford, so
yeah.
Brentford don't keep clean sheets, so
No,
Haaland's in the mix as well.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, I mean, for me, just because it's just Southampton are so poor, Bruno Fernandes would be my captain. Obviously, if I have Haaland, I've got nearly 15 million worth of player. That would edge me towards Haaland if he was there for a free hit. But yeah, those two. So I don't think Salah, Palmer, or indeed Isak are the best in all players. Haaland better. Bruno Fernandes could be better. But yeah, this is going to be a tough one. I'll be interested to see what the ownership is, the effective ownership. Palmer's will probably be over 100%, I would imagine. But I just think Bournemouth, like with Nottingham Forest, I think people just look at that and go, oh, Bournemouth at home, great fixture. But
Not as good as it was in previous seasons, and
No.
also Chelsea probably not as good as they were a couple of months ago,
No,
a couple of weeks
no,
ago.
no. So it is interesting there. Chris Wood's on my bench for this one, because obviously I join my bench points. Have you put him in there because you feel he's better than Castagna away to West Ham, or do you genuinely think he might get a return against Liverpool, who were beaten by Nottingham Forest away last time?
Yeah, I didn't even consider benching Wood because he's a set and forget for me regardless of fixtures because I don't have the eighth attacker. I almost never start a 4.5 defender over a
Okay.
penalty taken forward regardless of fixture. So whatever happens, unless I upgrade Xiaomi this week, then I probably would bench Chris Wood against Liverpool, but I don't really like doing it to be honest, because if Chris Wood just nicks a penalty, it could be a 9 pointer.
Yeah.
And if he misses it, Allison gets the points anyway. So yeah, I'm probably just going to leave Wood in there.
I think instead of Wood, I'm going for Morgan Rogers. I thought Aston Villa needed him. And Everton's, yes, their defence is in the top half, but they are still expected to concede every 67 minutes, and their expected goals conceded and goals conceded is pretty much on par with what they should be doing. So I like that. I think it could be an okay game for Watkins as well, for those who've got Aston Villa assets there. So yeah, what's the plan going forward? I mean, you're looking potentially to hold or upgrading Chiwomi. I'm looking at holding as well. But yeah, you look. Is this a period of consolidation?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with the squad. The major, rotation game weeks are behind us now, so I can survive a bit more with my bench. And I've been quite happy to see Greaves getting minutes. Hopefully, I'll never need him, but it's just good to have that extra body if there's a postponement or something again. Castagna Mikalenko, I think I can live with, but one of them could easily become a Lewis Hall or a Munoz, and it would be Castagna who would go because I'll just keep Mikalenko for Everton's double game week whenever that is. And then, like I said, assistant manager chip. So I'm being careful with my budget at the moment, and I probably won't triple up on Liverpool because of that reason. So yeah, hopefully I would like to roll a couple of times between now and whenever Liverpool's double game week is. So if injuries and stuff like that stays away from me, then hopefully I'll be able to do so.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot for chatting. We'll be back again next week when Mark will have some firmer thoughts about his team, who captained, and also we'll come up with some new stats as well to have a look at, see how we're doing this halfway point in the season. In the meantime, take care. See you soon. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Cheers, all.